acknowledge this is not the best. Okay, I'm not wasting any time. We're getting straight to it. I've been making a lot of Ariel outfits. Everything is leading up to one big Ariel cosplay, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm still collecting a few things. So in the meantime, I realized, you know, Ariel outfit that I really like that's totally underrated is her Shipwrecked Ariel outfit, you know, where she's just kind of like draped in rope and maybe a sail, who really knows? And it does that thing where it's like a really ugly outfit in one scene and then the next scene it's a completely different dress. Love that part. Hannah Alexander, who's one of my favorite costume designers, chef's kiss, has a Patreon exclusive Shipwrecked Ariel design. If you're not part of the Patreon, you can only see like this much of the costume. I'll show it here. But if you are part of the Patreon, which I am a patron of Hannah Alexander, obviously, you get to see the whole design. So while I'm not going to show you guys the whole design because that would be like, you know, completely disrespectful and a very bad move on my part to Hannah Alexander, I will be cosplaying this because I realized I have all the materials I need for this costume already in my house. I picked a few things apart yesterday. I got everything collected and I just want to get to making it. I don't want to keep you waiting. In this house we craft in pajamas. Let's go. Okay, again, we're not wasting any time. This is a store-bought Amazon corset. I have used this for 1,000 cosplays. I swear I'm constantly reusing this one. And then I've got this like chiffon curtain. This together used to be a Zelda costume. I'll show that here. Hashtag Mimi Maru art. Love her as an artist. Then hold this Ariel wig from my stash. This is from a My Hero Academia cosplay that I did. I clearly did not need as much green leafy stuff as I bought, but I'm glad I have it now because it was just in my stash. And then I've got all this rope. I got this from Hobby Lobby for like $3, the whole roll of it. I kind of have to unpick the upholstery thingy every time I do this. I'll show you here that I did that last night. And then I even have brownish, yellowish dyes because the costume has like parts like here and on the sleeve that are dyed yellow. I haven't quite decided, do I want to dye them yellow or not? We're getting there. I'm just gonna turn my little heater on, pop in a movie, and get going. Here are all my collected and sort of scavenged supplies all together and ready to be made into Hannah Alexander's version of Ariel's shipwrecked outfit. Now is probably the best time to add that the dress that I made is not an exact replica of the Hannah Alexander art, but it's close, and in my opinion it's not half bad considering I did this whole thing in like 3 days, so let's get into it. This gold rope cording stuff is meant for upholstery and that's why it's sewn onto a strip of twill tape. I just need the rope part, so I unpicked a bunch of the twill tape and then separated the two parts. Once I had enough rope ready to use, I went ahead and set up my dress form and then put the white corset onto the mannequin. Putting a corset on your own body is so much easier than putting one on a dress form, but we did it. I secured it onto the dress form using multiple straight pins just to make sure that it wasn't going to go anywhere while I was working on my masterpiece. I have this really big sheet of like white chiffon, and when I say it's big, I mean it's big. It's like 118 inches wide, which basically means that when it's folded in half widthwise, it can cover from my shoulders down to the ground. And I'm 6 feet tall, you guys. It's amazing. Basically what I'm doing to make the dress is just pleating and pinning the fabric onto the corset to make these sort of vertical ruffles all around the circumference of the bust. I just kind of eyeballed this and I made it work. I think there was about 3 to 4 yards of length on this piece of fabric, and that allowed me to manipulate a lot of volume into the pleats. I left the material as one big rectangle, so there's like a spot in the front where there's a big giant leg slit that literally goes all the way up to the bust, and that's just so I can take the corset on and off without any trouble. Once I got the pleats all pinned down and adjusted to my liking, it was time to stitch them down, and I just did this by hand. I like to save my spools of thread even when they only have a little bit of thread left on them for projects just like this because I'm a thrifty girl and I hate wasting my supplies. I stitched down every single pleat individually. Literally the worst thing that can happen in a situation like this is sewing the pleats down with just a running stitch and then accidentally stepping on the skirt and popping all your work right off the corset. So to avoid such a disaster, I made sure everything was super secure and strong. And because every pleat is sewn down individually, even if I do pop a few stitches, it'll be okay because the other individual stitches will keep the dress up and looking right. Once the main body of the dress was done, I grabbed the gold rope from earlier and wrapped it around the midsection of the dress form. At this point, I've only spent like 2 hours working on the costume and it's already starting to take shape. The original Hannah Alexander art shows a few drapey kind of beltish ropes around her hips, so I started working on that part, literally just keeping it as simple as possible. I'm still working on the belt portion, but then I realized I need to dye some fabric for like the sleeves and potentially the skirt, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna like put the sleeves together and figure out what it is I need to dye, and then dye that, and then while that's drying, I'm gonna get back to working on the belts just to kind of streamline this process a little bit more. So what I have is, this is just like regular chiffon, and then I have like this kind of textured chiffon. There is like a little swoopy belt portion, so I think I'll do a swoopy belt portion out of this wrinkly chiffon and then use this also for the sleeves because I don't have any more of this stuff. So I need to figure out how to incorporate this different texture into the dress without it looking ridiculous. And I think tying it in with the belt is probably my best option. I'm using the word belt as loosely as possible. It's really more like a drapey piece of fabric tied around Ariel's hips. It's what I would consider an irrational design choice, where it looks really good but serves no functional purpose. It's simply for the fashion of it all, and I am here for it. Because I really think it adds to the birth of Aphrodite feel that a lot of Ariel's outfits have. Like, the drape of it all is very oceanic in a way, and the effect is easy to replicate. As far as the sleeves are concerned, I just went with 2 giant rectangles. I secured all the raw edges, and that took forever because I cut these sleeves out to be quite large, and that's on purpose because your girl likes what? Drama. I sewed a small casing at the top of both sleeves so that I could pull an elastic through them, and then they'll be able to sit on my upper arms without any straps or anything. The sleeves are not connected to the dress. They are yet again another design choice made specifically for the fashion of it all, and the idea of stuff like that absolutely sings to me. A big giant safety pin is literally your best friend when trying to feed elastic into casings. A few scrunchy fabric moments and a little bit of adjusting and manipulating the fabric, and that's a sleeve, baby. Well, kind of. It works perfectly for our oceanic mermaid turned human tries fashion for the first time. And I mean, we've all been there. Who hasn't wrapped a blanket around their body just to pretend it's a grand ball gown and then danced around in your room? I definitely have. To give that sleeve that little bit of extra puff, I'm zigzag stitching a short elastic onto the length of the sleeve about 8 inches down from the top elastic and calling it good. Then I moved on to the underskirt. Remember how this dress is like sheer and see-through? And remember how I'm planning on wearing this in the ocean? I definitely needed a few more layers underneath to keep this outfit G-rated. Plus, I really like it when dresses and skirts have really flowy full layers. And more is more is more is more. Even though I'm literally doing the absolute least when it comes to this underskirt. It's just a couple of really big rectangles sewn into an even bigger rectangle, and then I secured all the raw edges with my serger, and I sewed an elastic casing into it like I did with the sleeves, only this time I used a bigger elastic because hello, the skirt has way more fabric to hold up than the sleeves, and it's that simple, easy rectangle skirt done. In the original drawing, which again, I will not be showing because it is a Patreon exclusive of Hannah Alexander. If you want to see the entire drawing, you have to be a patron of hers. Go to her page. I will link it down below. It has these like netting details, like fishnet kind of in different places. I don't have any fishnet. I don't even have anything like super similar to it, but I do have this scallopy lace stuff, and so I'm gonna try and make this work. My plan is to just make like a secondary sleeve type thing where like this will be the sleeve and then there'll just be like pieces of this in there. And I'm really debating not dyeing anything because it would just be so much easier. But then at the same time, I do like the pop of color because then it's not just white. So if I'm gonna dye anything, I think it'll be these things. I don't know. And that's the truth. I really didn't know exactly where I was going to take this costume design-wise. I really just was doing my best with the materials I had available. And that being said, I did turn this eyelash lace into an additional sleeve, and if you guessed that I cut it into a giant rectangle and then sewed an elastic casing into the top and just called that good, then you are either really good at guessing, have been watching and noticed a pattern, or must really, really love rectangles and elastic casings, which, whatever the case, that's what I did. This is kind of where I'm at. I have the stuff that I want to dye, which is like the underskirt and then the 2 lacy, netty sleeve thingies. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and dye them right now and then come back to this. My method for dyeing fabric is probably the same as everyone else's method because I literally just read the back of the dye bottle and do my best to apply the technique without messing things up too bad. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that the skirt fabric is 100% polyester and I don't have any dye poly. So even though I'm going to put the skirt in my dye pot and just hope for the best, I'm pretty sure it won't actually take any color from the dye. The eyelash lace, on the other hand, should be fine. I've dyed it with regular dyes before and it worked really, really well. I'm doing like a dip dye method here and I'm adding color as I go just so I get that nice gradient. In the original art, she does have a gradient colored kind of sunset-y color palette going from white and yellow to orangey red, so I'm just trying to replicate that as well as I can, but I also don't want to spend too much time doing this. Ideally, I would have had different colors of pots and dye and each individual color would be like in its own pot, but this method works just fine. I rinse everything out in my sink with lots of water and soap and then I just wait for it to dry. At this don't lean back on your chairs too far. At this point in the build, I have the sleeves done, the pretty much the dress is done. The last thing I need to do on the dress is just add the little seaweed looking greenery that kind of comes up from the bottom. I dyed the sleeves. The lace sleeves turned out really nice, but the underskirt I'm pretty sure is 100% polyester, and there's no way I can dye it without dye poly. So I'm going to the craft store tomorrow and I will literally only get orange dye poly and a purple flower for the wig. I'm not getting anything else, and I'm telling you right now that that's my plan, because I know once I get in there, I'm just gonna get so distracted. And that's why I try not to go very often, because I end up getting things that I don't really need. My stash of fabric and craft supplies is already at max capacity. I really can't keep buying more. I've been really good about buying only the things that I need. If I need a spool of thread or if I need a specific zipper, I'll go get those things. But as far as like bulk buying stuff, I've got to stop. Everything that I dyed is in the dryer. Probably not gonna be dry for like 2 hours, I swear, because the dryer is slow and they were kind of soaking wet. I should have like spun them around a little bit more. Ideally, I would have hung them outside, but I think if I put them outside, they would just freeze. For full transparency, I made this costume when it was very much still winter outside, and now that I'm finally getting around to editing the video, it's hot enough outside to merit getting a twisty ice cream cone in the middle of the day, so cheers. I'm just gonna move on to doing this part and do as much of it as I can today. In reality, the costume's almost done, and I'm thrilled about that. The original art has a few seaweed looking green vines kind of cascading down the length of the skirt. I have this ball of plastic green vines and I just sewed them onto the bottom section of the dress at varying lengths. I sewed them on with green thread on top and white thread in the bobbin just to try and camouflage the stitches a little bit. The original art also has various ocean things like seashells and starfish kind of scattered around the hem of the skirt. I decided not to include anything like that because, well, first of all, I didn't just have anything of the sort lying around my house, and secondly, I didn't want to add a lot of extra weight to the skirt. I wanted to keep it as light and flowy as possible. The green vines are from Amazon and you can get the whole ball for really cheap. They don't weigh hardly anything at all, so I just stuck with them. Round 2, a couple days later, I have like the actual proper polyester dye stuff, so hopefully this works, and if not, I'm not really gonna care because it looks fine as is. This is just kind of like an added measure, you know, just like an additional layer. If it doesn't work, I don't really care. What did I lose? A couple of hours? Okay, fine. Back to the dye pot. I should have just purchased the dye poly in the first place because I kind of knew the skirt was 100% polyester, and with that being the case, I knew it wouldn't take the dye from regular RIT dye, but here I am learning the same lesson over and over again. Once I had the right supplies, the skirt took the dye really quickly, almost too quickly, because it was really hard to keep up with the speed at which the fabric changed color. And when you're doing a gradient like what I have going on here, you have to be super vigilant to keep things moving right along. Otherwise, you'll end up with a harsh color line instead of a smooth color gradient. Once the skirt is dyed more or less to my desired colors, I just rinse it out in my sink with cold water until the water runs clear, and then I wash it with soap to get any additional dye out and then rinse it again. I have a granite sink and it's a white granite sink, so literally any color stains show and they are super obvious. A little bit of bleach and some light scrubbing takes the dye right out of the sink. This was a really mild dye job because last time I dyed my entire sink bright red and that was a disaster to clean up. I told myself that I would style the wig after I dyed the fabric. Well, I dyed the fabric almost an hour ago and I have my wig head here and the wig. The problem is that the last time I styled the wig, it looked 6 out of 10. Wasn't great. It's the Elsa wig, you can watch that here. This one's easier, right? It's just the bangs. Okay, I'm gonna do it. Alright, here's the real deal. I can style wigs and do a pretty decent job at it, but that's literally only if I give myself ample time to complete the job. Unfortunately, I all too often leave the wig styling up until the very last minute, and so I end up styling a wig in a matter of 5 to 6 hours instead of taking a more appropriate 15 to 20 hours, and that's why I feel like all of my most recent wigs haven't turned out very well. It's not so much a skill issue as it is a logistics and planning issue. On top of that, I do not enjoy styling wigs like I enjoy sewing. It taxes me, and I only have like a little bit of patience for it. When I take my time and I do it right, I end up with like a really great wig that has an awesome and lasting style. And when I don't take my time, I just kind of end up rushing the whole thing, and then I, you know, end up with, well, this Ariel wig that's like a 4 out of 10 at best. I think I also would have benefited from adding in additional wefts to the wig. I literally have 2 of these red wigs so that I could harvest the wefts from one wig and sew it into into the other, but I just didn't have enough time to actually do that. And honestly, a finished just okay wig is better in this situation than no wig at all. You can roast me all you want, but just know that if you choose to roast me over the wig, you're roasting someone who just did the best they could with the time they had. That being said, I know it's bad, but it's also not the worst thing in the world. I think the majority of people can tell what character the wig is supposed to be for. Maybe? In a few moments, I'm going to show you a couple of videos of me attempting to curl the wig. I think that was my biggest misstep. I don't have the best tools for curling a wig, especially one that's as long as this one is, and I think I should have just left the length of the wig alone and just styled the bangs, because it only got uglier from here. I acknowledge this is not the best. It's kind of giving Maid-Marian vibes more than anything else, but it could be worse, so hey, that's not bad. Got my little foam rollers. I couldn't find anything bigger than this, so hopefully this works. I'm just gonna curl these front pieces so that they're bouncy, and I'm gonna do the steaming method, which I've done before and I know works. It just kind of takes a little bit of time, so better keep working. You guys, I am so unsettled by all of my misplaced optimism. Oh, I'm only gonna curl the front pieces so they are bouncy. Wake up, past me. You were better off doing the bare minimum. Curling this whole wig does not bode well for you. And in the long run, it doesn't even matter. Not this time around anyways. You guys, one day in the future, I will restyle this wig and it will be a magnificent Ariel wig with additional wefts and perfectly placed Jodie Benson in the 80s styled bangs. And you will love it. You will hoist me on your shoulders, chanting and praising my name. But today is not that day. No, 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 no. Today you get the wig equivalent of a soggy waffle, and that is all I have to offer you. My deepest and most sincere apologies. I just want these to be loose waves, so I don't want to like put a bag over it, you know? And I don't want to like make it so tight that it's...
So this is just going to be like 5 ringlets and that's it?
Yeah. It's like obviously I'm going to like separate them out. I just want loose waves. Yeah, that would have been great, but we don't get loose waves, do we? No, we get almost Merida styled messy curls that are untamable and just wrong. Oh well, it's done now, and editing me is tired of these wig shenanigans, so let's just be done with it and accept a monstrosity for what it is. A monstrosity. It's just gonna sit under this bag for a couple of hours, and then I think I'll take the bag off for overnight, and maybe it will dry by the morning and I can kind of like see what I've got. It just wasn't getting wet enough, like the steam wasn't steaming enough without the bag, and so that's what I've resorted to. The last kind of part I have to do is just make the little hair clip. I've got this little flower thingy, and then this pack of pearls that I'll do for like, she has like a pearl tiara thing. She also has like more leafy stuff up in her hair, but I don't know if I'll put that in just because I'm omitting a lot of the details. Like in the original drawing she has like shells and stuff kind of like cascading down the skirt, and I just, first of all, don't have anything like that. Second of all, I don't want to take the time to put everything on just to have them kind of break through the process of wearing the outfit, and I'm planning on wearing this in the water. So I feel like I just need to find a balance between less is more, you know? Moving on to the flower headpiece. I just got this giant purple flower from the craft store, and I was successful in only getting the Rit dye and the purple flower the last time I went to the craft store. I'm making progress at only getting what I need, and I'm just making a very simple flower hair clip and then attaching some of these chain pearls to it so I can kind of make like a pearl tiara slash headband effect, mostly in an attempt to distract from the wig. Let me know if the distraction works. And then I decided that because I wasn't going to add any seashells to the hem of the skirt, that the dress overall would benefit from more green seaweed vine thingies, so I went ahead and sewed more of those on. I also went ahead and cut the scallop pattern out of the bottom part of the lace sleeve thingies. I'm really hungry and I want to go eat lunch, but I'm gonna undo these little curlies first, just in case they turn out immaculately. Then I get to eat my pizza roll, thinking about how good a job I just did, and if they're super, super terrible, then I get to eat my pizza roll and be distracted for 15 minutes. I think we all know how this is about to go. It's not great. No, not great at all. Cue the sad music. Yeah, good thing we're on a journey of acceptance in this video. Splitting the curls helped the wig not to look so much like when 7th grade girls curl their hair on their birthday to wear to school, and they only have like 5 big crunchy ringlets. I know that's not so much a thing nowadays, but when I was in 7th grade, it was a weekly occurrence. Luckily, my birthday is in the summertime, so I never fell victim to the ugly early 2000 crunchy birthday curls, but man, it was a thing. Okay, we're in the home stretch, and this is the last part. I tried everything on, realized just how see-through the skirt still was, so I made a little skirt out of this white pinstripe bedsheet. Again, just a couple of rectangles with an elastic casing sewn into the top. The raw edges got secured via my serger and I called it good. This little skirt will be worn underneath all of the layers of chiffon to provide a little bit more opaqueness because otherwise the dress is almost completely sheer and see-through, and it's just not my vibe to be sharing images like that on the internet. I have behind the scenes shots of like a costume or a dress that I've made, I do like to share that with you guys. There's just something kind of humanizing about sharing the behind the scenes footage. It's a lot of stop and go. It's a lot of what about this, what about that, let's try over there, let's try with the light in this direction. Really, it's just super experimental, and I don't know, I find it enjoyable and kind of useful, so here you go. Thoughts on this. Things I liked, things I disliked. As far as things that I liked, I'd say like the overall look of it, I think is just fine. I also like that the project didn't take very long. Like I put it together in like 3 or 4 days, so that was really nice. Especially considering that I think the effect of the costume makes it look like I took a lot longer on it. Maybe that's just how I feel about it. Other things I liked, I really do like the green vines that are like coming up from the bottom of the dress. I thought that was a good detail. Things I didn't like, well, there's the wig, but I feel like I've beat that horse completely dead. Like, I don't feel like I need to keep talking about how much I hate the wig. I think by now we all know I don't like the wig. One day I will actually restyle that and add more wefts in, and maybe I'll dye it a different color because that red color is just too red. I would want almost a little bit skewing on the burgundy side, just kind of like darker, a little bit more natural, if you can even consider mermaid hair natural, which, you know, whatever, it's not real. Another thing I disliked, and this is really less to do with the dress itself and more to do with how I wore it, is the second it got wet, everything just got so much heavier, and I was like trying to spin around and like be beautiful on the beach, and it was just like whipping the sleeves around, and I was like spraying water everywhere, so that was kind of terrible, but also kind of funny. Overall, I'm not mad at the project. Overall, I think it was really fun. It was really cost effective because I didn't have to buy anything except for the RIT dye. I did have to buy the iDye Poly RIT dye. That's like, what, 12 bucks? Big deal. Overall, everything that I used in the dress were things that I already had lying around, and that was my main motivation for wanting to do this dress. It just so happened to coincide with like the live action Little Mermaid movie that's coming out, which my expectations were like, oh, I'm really excited for this movie, but as more content is like being released about it, I'm getting less and less excited, and I feel like it's just falling into that kind of terrible Disney remake category, which makes me really sad because if there's one movie that I think could have been really, really awesome and colorful and musical, it's The Little Mermaid. Still, I'm excited to see it. I just don't know if I'll go to the theaters and watch it. I might wait until it comes out on the streaming platforms. And that has more to do with the fact that I just like watching movies in the comfort of my own home and less sitting next to strangers in a dark, cold theater. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you all so, so much for clicking on this video and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. More videos are on their way soon. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Go ahead and click that bell icon. If you liked this video, let me know in the comments below. And in this house, we craft in pajamas.